Jonah didn't remember falling asleep. He just woke up, diary clutched in his hands, parked on the side of a highway that didn't look familiar. Early morning mist curled around the edges of his windshield like something trying to get in. He reached for his phone. Dead. Then the GPS. Also dead. But the diary had changed again. The newest entry wasn't written in Eva's usual clean cursive. It looked rushed. Jagged. Almost frantic. Go where the house doesn't exist. It's not on paper, but it remembers you. Beneath it was a sketch, a dirt road with no name, an iron gate, and a 2-story house with broken windows. And beneath that, 3 words. Ask for mercy. He drove for hours, not even sure what he was following. No signal. No maps. Just a memory that didn't feel like his. Finally, near the edge of what looked like an abandoned mining town, he saw it. The gate from the sketch. It stood at the end of a narrow road, rusted open like it had given up fighting. Beyond it, a house. 2 stories. Faded blue siding. The front porch collapsed on one side. Every window black as pitch. The exact house from the diary. Jonah parked and walked toward it. Each step heavier than the last. The closer he got, the more the air changed. Quieter. He could hear nothing. No birds. No wind. Just the sound of his own breath. And even that felt wrong, like it was echoing in someone else's lungs. The front door opened with a whimper. Inside, dust and silence. He stepped into the foyer and suddenly knew this place. He'd never been there before. But his body remembered it. The creak of the 3rd stair. The chipped paint in the hallway. The faint floral scent coming from upstairs, like someone had sprayed perfume years ago and it still hadn't faded. He moved forward, past a broken piano, through a narrow corridor, toward a closed door. Something behind it whispered. He reached for the knob, and stopped. Written in black marker on the wood were the words. Ask for mercy. His throat tightened. He knocked once. The door creaked open on its own. Inside was a room preserved in grief. A bed with clean sheets. A dresser with a cracked mirror. A candle half burnt. And photos, so many photos, pinned to the walls, scattered across the floor. Eva. As a child. As a teenager. Laughing. Crying. Sleeping. Someone had been documenting her whole life. Intimately. Obsessively. In the center of the room sat an old woman in a rocking chair. Pale skin. White hair tied in a low bun. Hands folded neatly in her lap. She didn't look up. Jonah stood frozen. Are you Mercy? He asked. She slowly nodded. You knew Eva? Another nod. He stepped closer. What happened to her? This time, she spoke. Her voice was dry, as if each word had to crawl out of her lungs. They told you she died on June 3rd. Yes. That was a lie. Then when? June 4th. In this house. Jonah's stomach turned. But the coroner's report. She cut him off. Fabricated. Like the rest of her file. They couldn't let her be alive. Not even for a day. He swallowed hard. Why? She looked up then. Eyes like cracked porcelain. Because she remembered what they erased. Mercy rose, painfully, and moved to a cabinet. She unlocked it with a key from around her neck and pulled out a box. Inside, another journal. Thinner. Older. Mercy handed it to him. Eva's initials were burned into the leather. Her real diary, Mercy said. Not the one they left behind. Jonah opened it. The first page read, "If you're reading this, then they found the wrong Jonah." He flipped to the last page. I thought I could change the ending. I was wrong. But I made one last move. And I left it in the place no one looks for truth anymore, a child's dream. Suddenly, the air in the room shifted. The temperature dropped. The candle flickered out. And the photos began to flutter, one by one, falling to the ground as if gravity had forgotten how to behave. Mercy didn't flinch. Jonah backed away, clutching the journal to his chest. Then, on the inside of the door, something new appeared. A smear. Red. Fresh. Letters drawn by an invisible hand. "You're almost out of time." Jonah didn't remember leaving the house. One moment, he was standing in the room with Mercy. The next, he was back in his car, the sky bruised with the last light of evening, Eva's real diary gripped tight in his hands. The front door to the house now stood shut. Silent. As if it had never opened for him at all. He checked his phone, still dead. No time. No signal. No explanation. Only the journal. He began reading it right there in the car, parked beneath a sky that looked too wide, too still. Page after page poured out of Eva's real voice, not the one the police tried to sanitize, not the one the media had manipulated. This was raw, real, and deeply afraid. The entries painted a picture far different from what anyone had been told. She'd been stalked. Watched. Not by a stranger, but by someone inside the system. A man she only referred to as the editor. He didn't kill people, Eva had written. He edits them. He removes their names, their truths, and replaces them with better endings, safer stories the world can accept. The editor had approached her months before her supposed death, disguised as someone sent to help, after she blew the whistle on corruption inside a state-run psychiatric facility. Eva had uncovered a network of buried abuse cases, patients misdiagnosed, silenced, some even vanished. But every time she tried to go public, the documents disappeared. Sources recanted. Dates shifted. Reality itself bent to erase her. "He rewrites memory," she wrote. "He doesn't kill people. He makes the world forget they ever mattered." Jonah felt a chill settle into his bones as he flipped to the next page. It was dated June 4th. The day after she was pronounced dead. The entry was short. "He found me. I tried to hide in memory. In places he doesn't look, dreams, echoes, children. But he's closer now. If I disappear again, let the drawings lead you. They're the only parts of me he can't erase. And if he finds Jonah, he'll try to rewrite him too." Jonah slammed the book shut. His reflection in the rearview mirror looked unfamiliar. Pale. Eyes sunken. Was he sleeping at all? Or was something slowly editing him? He drove. Didn't know where, just away. But roads bent. Signs vanished. And soon, it felt like every path led him back to the same intersection. 3 times he passed it. A rusted signpost. A crowbar nailed to a tree. A child's shoe, pink, laced with dirt. It was then he saw her. A girl, standing in the middle of the road. White dress. No shoes. Staring at him with the stillness of a photograph. He braked hard. She didn't flinch. When he stepped out, heart thudding, she spoke without moving her mouth. "You saw the real diary." Jonah nodded, unsure why he wasn't questioning how she knew. "Now he sees you." "Who?" he asked. But she was already turning, pointing toward the trees. "Go to the name she never wrote down. That's where the lie lives." And then she vanished. Gone. No sound. No trace. That night, in a gas station bathroom somewhere off a dirt road, Jonah flipped through the diary again. Back to the last entry. He noticed something strange. A pressed flower between the pages. Wilted. Faintly blue. He peeled it out, and saw it had been hiding a name scribbled beneath the June 4th entry. A name crossed out violently, as if Eva had tried to erase it but hadn't quite succeeded. R. Calder. Jonah stared. The name sent a pulse of recognition through his chest. Calder. Why did it sound familiar? He typed it into his laptop when he finally reached a motel with power. The search led to a dead-end government file. Riley Calder. Senior Analyst, Behavioral Narrative Division. Disappeared 5 years ago. Case sealed. Then an image loaded. Jonah's skin turned to ice. It was him. Jonah's face. Smiling. Clean-shaven. Wearing a suit. Name, Riley Calder. He fell back from the screen, breath ragged. Eva's words echoed in his skull. He'll try to rewrite him too. He was the name she never wrote down. He wasn't Jonah, or at least not always. Somewhere in the past, before Eva died, before the lies were cleaned and published, he had been part of the machine. Part of the ones who erased people. And now, he was waking up to the edited version of himself. June 3rd. The world outside Eva Carter's apartment was painfully normal. The kind of cruel normalcy that mocked those who knew the truth. She hadn't slept in 3 nights. Not since the second disappearance. Not since Maria. Eva sat at her small desk, the windows taped over, the vents stuffed with cotton, the light bulbs removed. Shadows bled across the walls in strange patterns. Her notebook lay open, half ink, half graphite, the pages curling from the number of times she'd erased and redrawn. She didn't know who would read it. But she knew it had to be someone. He's watching the obvious paths now. Phone calls vanish. Emails unsend themselves. I send letters. They never arrive. My memories feel soft, like warm wax. Across the room, her mirror flickered again. Not with light. With movement. She walked over slowly. Looked at herself. And behind her. He stood in the reflection. Not in the room. Just in the mirror. A man in a black button-up, sleeves rolled, no face, just the suggestion of one. As if reality hadn't quite finished rendering him. Eva turned. Nothing. Turned back to the mirror. He was closer now. She didn't scream. She never screamed. Screaming is what they expected you to do. Panic made it easier to rewrite you. Eva backed away and scribbled across the top of her diary. Do not trust mirrors. Do not trust memory. Only trust the scars. She had 3. One behind her ear. One just below her rib. And one on the inside of her wrist, the one she carved herself when her memories began looping. Proof of reality. Blood didn't lie. Not yet. She left the apartment around midnight. No phone. No ID. Just the journal and a disposable camera. She made her way across the city to the Rosewood Center, the mental health facility where everything had begun. Maria had worked there. So had Leo. So had Riley Calder. Eva hadn't remembered his face until yesterday. That charming grin. The questions he asked that never sounded like questions. He'd been so kind at first. But he was the first erasure. The first redaction. When the patients went missing, when files vanished, Eva had screamed. Begged for someone to listen. But when she brought her findings to the board, Riley was the one who met her in the hallway. Calm. Gentle. Let me help you rewrite the narrative. The truth's too sharp for most people. She'd laughed in his face. He didn't take it personally. The next day, her notes were gone. Her inbox empty. Her boss didn't remember the conversation she'd had with him just the night before. Even her own mother started saying Eva was getting confused again. But she remembered. Oh God, she remembered. So she'd hidden pieces of herself. In sketches. In analog film. In backroom library copies. In the dreams of children she used to counsel. And now she was back, to collect the last piece before they could wipe it for good. Inside the old rosewood wing, she found the door. Room 217. The observation archive. The handle was cold. The hallway flickered behind her. Inside the room, dust and silence greeted her. But so did the recorder. The reel-to-reel machine she had hidden under the floorboards. And it was still spinning. She pressed stop. Rewound. Played. Voices. Hers. Leo's. Maria's. And one that didn't belong. Subject 3B has started resisting the insertions. Memory bleed is increasing. Recommendation. Terminate. She's not a subject, She's a person. That's not your call, Calder. Her breath caught. She remembered now. Leo had tried to fight back. So they'd edited him too. And then, her voice. If anyone hears this, know that memory is truth. Your mind is not broken. It's been broken for you. Eva sobbed quietly. Not from fear, but from vindication. She wasn't insane. She wasn't alone. As she left the center, she spotted movement across the street. A man. Watching. No eyes. But he was seeing her. She ran. Through alleys. Through memory. Through the edge of what was still hers. Back home, her hands shook as she wrote her final diary entry. But not on the last page. She skipped to June 4th, a date they couldn't explain away. A detail that would never match the reports. And beneath it, she drew a symbol. A circle with 3 dots. The symbol she'd carved behind the drywall. The same one that children at Rosewood had drawn in crayon without ever having seen it. She closed the book. Slid it under the loose floorboard. And then, a knock. She didn't answer. The door creaked open anyway. She never remembered what happened after that. Not clearly. But she remembered the smell of bleach. The sound of paper shredders. The way her body floated just above the ground, as if she were being erased in stages. She heard a voice. Sometimes we just tidy up the world. No need for all this chaos. But before she fully slipped under, Eva reached out with her mind, grasping at any tether. She thought of Jonah. The boy with the guilt in his eyes. The one they hadn't fully taken yet. She whispered into the dark. Remember me. Find the scar. Finish what I couldn't. And then, nothing. Jonah sat alone in Eva's crumbling apartment, the journal open on the floor in front of him, the pages fanned out like a broken wing. The final entry, dated June 4th, one day after she died, glared back at him like a quiet scream. He'd read it 5 times already, but each time, the meaning seemed to shift slightly. Not because of his mind, but because the words were changing. Just like the hallway outside Eva's apartment had changed length twice. Just like the man downstairs who had smiled at him earlier now had no memory of doing so. The edits had begun. And time was short. Find the scar. He rolled up his sleeve. Nothing. Checked behind his ear. Nothing. Then, a twinge. He pressed against the inside of his wrist. A ridge of faint tissue, nearly invisible. A scar he had no memory of receiving. Only trust the scars. His breathing slowed. Reality grounded itself again. A sudden sound broke the stillness. Tap, tap, tap. Someone at the door. Jonah stayed completely still. Then the doorknob turned. He grabbed the diary, stuffed it under his jacket, and stepped behind the curtain in Eva's room. He peeked through the gap just in time to see a man walk in. Tall, suited. Calm like still water. In his hand, a pen. Jet black. No clipboard. No bag. He didn't look around the room like a thief. He moved like he already knew where everything was. As if the building itself had reported back to him. Jonah's breath caught in his throat. The man moved to the rug and lifted it. Pulled up the loose floorboard, Eva's hiding place, but it was empty now. He frowned ever so slightly. Then he spoke aloud to no one. The diary is missing. Adjust timeline parameters. Check subject 9. His voice wasn't recorded. Jonah could tell. It was being transmitted. The man looked around again. Paused at the mirror. And then turned, straight toward the curtain. Jonah's blood iced over. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. The man stepped closer, and then, strangely, just smiled. You're not ready yet. But soon. And then, as if his purpose had been fulfilled, he left. Just like that. The door clicked shut behind him. Jonah collapsed to the floor, hands shaking. The man hadn't even tried to find him. Hadn't needed to. He'd known Jonah was there, and he'd let him go. Why? Was it part of the rewrite? A setup? A countdown? He opened Eva's journal again. Flipped to the inside cover. There, in fresh ink that had not been there 10 minutes ago, was a new line of writing. He edits memory, not belief. If you choose to believe, you're immune. Jonah's hands trembled. He wanted to believe. But so much had already slipped. He couldn't even remember his father's voice anymore. He didn't know what year it really was. His own reflection looked off, somehow. But one memory had returned. A name. Riley Calder. He recognized it now, not as a stranger, but as someone he once trusted. The man who had interviewed him for a clinical study 3 years ago. The same man who gave him memory enhancement pills that turned his dreams into static and his thoughts into sand. Jonah remembered, screaming. And Eva. Eva telling him he was being edited. He hadn't believed her then. But now he knew. There was only one person left who might still know the full truth. A name Eva had circled several times in the back of her journal. Dr. Rose Hensley. Jonah didn't know who she was, but she had written the original grant application for the neurocognitive calibration study Eva once exposed. She had disappeared 2 years ago, declared dead. But Eva had written, "Find her. If she's still herself, she can end this." And beneath that, "She wears yellow. Always. So she doesn't forget." The next morning, Jonah packed a small bag. Journal. Camera. A knife. He didn't know what would work anymore, but he knew the war was in his head, and if he didn't act now, soon he wouldn't remember any of this. As he walked down Eva Street, he saw the same man in the suit again. This time standing under a lamppost, face turned slightly toward the sky, expression calm as always. Watching. But not stopping him. As if Jonah was exactly where he was supposed to be. In the distance, thunder rolled, not from the clouds, but from something else. A shift. Jonah pulled his sleeve down over the scar and whispered to himself, as if the echo might tether him to the truth. Only trust the scars. And he walked into the storm. Only trust the scars. The phrase was now more than a warning, it was a map. A tether in a world being subtly rewritten, one word, one thought at a time. Jonah followed the only lead he had, Dr. Rose Hensley. According to Eva's journal, she'd vanished 2 years ago under suspicious circumstances, shortly after raising alarms about memory calibration experiments and cognitive override trials. Her last known address, Cedar Hollow Psychiatric Institute, just outside the city. But Cedar Hollow had been shut down. Or so he thought. Jonah's ride through the outskirts of town was quiet and gray. Fog rolled in along the hills like a slow tide. The trees on the side of the road leaned unnaturally inward, as if whispering secrets to one another. The cab driver said nothing. Didn't even acknowledge Jonah when he gave the address. Just drove. Silently. When they reached the gates of the old asylum, the driver stopped without a word. Jonah stepped out. The cab pulled away, and vanished into the fog. Cedar Hollow stood in decaying silence. Brick walls crumbled under ivy and time. Windows were boarded or shattered. A condemned sign hung crooked across the gate. Jonah gripped Eva's journal and walked up the winding path, heart thudding. The door was unlocked. The lobby was coated in dust, as if the building had been abandoned mid-breath. Desks overturned. Papers scattered. Chairs rusted in place. But then, footsteps. Soft. Deliberate. Jonah ducked behind a counter and peeked out. A woman in a bright yellow coat walked slowly down the hall, her hand brushing the wall like she was feeling for something forgotten. She stopped in front of a faded patient directory, placed her palm on the glass, and whispered something. Jonah stepped out. "Dr. Hensley?" She froze, her back to him. Then, slowly, she turned. Her face was older than the picture Jonah had found in Eva's notes, but her eyes were sharp. Alert. Untouched. "Who sent you?" Jonah held up the journal. Eva Raines. She said you could help. Her eyes widened. She stepped closer, staring not at him, but at the scar on his wrist. So, they didn't erase you yet. Dr. Hensley took Jonah into a hidden wing of the hospital, behind a bookcase that slid open to reveal a long stairwell. At the bottom, a locked door, reinforced with steel. Inside was a dimly lit room filled with filing cabinets, faded monitors, and a large corkboard, covered in clippings, photographs, and red string. Eva's face appeared 3 times, each with different dates and different deaths. Jonah stepped closer. One photo said she died in a car accident. Another, suicide. The third, missing. All official. All conflicting. Dr. Hensley poured tea and spoke. You're part of an unfinished experiment. Eva too. But she resisted longer than any of us. She figured out how they're editing time, not time as in clocks, but time as memory, perception, narrative. That journal you're carrying isn't writing her story. It's writing yours. Jonah felt the ground tilt beneath him. Then why would her final entry be dated after her death? Dr. Hensley looked up sharply. Because she wrote it in your mind. The editor isn't just changing events, Jonah. He's rewriting identity. You didn't just know Eva. You may have been her, or parts of her, before your narrative was split. Jonah backed away, mind reeling. That's not possible. I knew her. She helped me. Yes. But did you ever speak out loud in the same room? Ever touch her? Are you sure? Jonah opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. Because now that she said it, he wasn't sure at all. Dr. Hensley moved to the corkboard and pulled down a yellowed file marked Subject 9, Partition Protocols. Jonah's name was on the last page. So was Eva's. Same birth date. Same psychological profile. Different bodies. You weren't 2 people, she said gently. You were 2 halves. The emotional anchor and the logical rebel. They split your mind across 2 realities to make you easier to manipulate. Jonah sat down. The truth, jagged and surreal, clamped around his ribs. Then, who am I now? You're whoever resists longest. That's who survives. The lights flickered. Dr. Hensley froze. She turned to the camera in the ceiling. They found us. She pressed a key on the old terminal and handed Jonah a drive. This contains the reset parameters. Plug it into any editor terminal. It'll start the decalibration. But you only get 1 shot. If they see you plug this in, they'll overwrite you in seconds. Jonah nodded. Where's the nearest terminal? You already know. He did. He'd seen it once. Hidden behind the mirror in Eva's apartment. What he thought was a strange light reflection, was a console. The kind not meant for humans to see. Jonah rose to his feet. Time to end this. As he turned to leave, Dr. Hensley stopped him. One last thing, Jonah. He looked back. If you see Eva again, she may not know you. She may not even be real anymore. But tell her something from me. Tell her, the scar is still mine. Jonah nodded, heart heavy, and stepped back into the fog. The fog trailed Jonah like a memory he couldn't shake, thick, clinging, whispering things he wasn't supposed to hear. By the time he reached Eva's apartment building, it was nearly dusk. But something about the light felt artificial. The way it hit the sidewalk. The way it curved unnaturally around objects. Like reality was being rendered frame by frame. Like a simulation correcting itself, Jonah muttered. The doorman was gone. The lobby empty. No cameras, no noise, just a subtle hum in the walls, like static before a storm. He climbed the stairs. 4th floor. Apartment 4B. Eva's door stood ajar. As he pushed it open, a slow creak echoed into the quiet. Inside, the air was cold. Not from weather, but absence. No signs of struggle. No notes. No scent. just the hollow echo of something, or someone, missing. Jonah stepped in and moved toward the mirror. Everything looked exactly as he remembered. Or maybe, how they wanted him to remember. The mirror, tall and rectangular, hung on the living room wall above a desk. He stared into it, and didn't see himself. Not quite. His reflection lagged behind. A delay, like buffering. "Show me," he whispered. Nothing. He reached behind the mirror's frame and ran his fingers along the edges. Just like Eva had done that night, he now wasn't sure even happened. Then, click. The mirror's surface shimmered, then melted into light. A screen lit up. Blue. Minimalist. Cold. The editor interface. Status, active. Subject, partitioned, 001A, 001B. Override access, pending. Jonah inserted the drive Dr. Hensley gave him. The interface flickered. Lines of code streamed down. Commands. Memories. Names he didn't recognize. Some made his chest tighten inexplicably. Others made his hands shake. He saw a familiar sequence. Delete subject 001B, Eva Raines. Override identity to 001A, J. Harper. Consolidate memory strands into viable control matrix. Status, success. You erased her, Jonah said, voice cracking. You made her part of me. He hovered the cursor over a single line. Run decalibration? A warning appeared in red. Warning, decalibration will permanently fracture constructed timeline. Subjects may experience dissonance, collapse, or full reversion. Proceed? Jonah clicked yes. The screen began to strobe. His ears rang. Reality around him bent. The ceiling rippled like water. The mirror flashed images, Eva screaming, Eva writing, Eva smiling and crying at the same time. Then Jonah, laughing, bleeding, running, overlaid like fractured versions of the same film. Suddenly, the lights cut out. Darkness. Then, Jonah. He spun. Eva stood in the doorway. Not spectral. Not ghostly. Real. Wearing the same clothes from the night she died. "How are you here?" he whispered. She tilted her head, confused. "I've always been here. You just forgot." "But they said," Dr. Hensley said. "She's not real, Jonah." He blinked. "What?" Eva stepped closer, her voice low, urgent. "None of this is real. Not the drive. Not the terminal. You've been in the editor since the first night you blacked out. They kept resetting you every time you got too close." "That's not true," Jonah whispered, backing away. "Is it?" she asked. "Then tell me something real. Anything. A smell. A touch. A sound that hasn't been curated." Jonah tried. And failed. He suddenly couldn't remember what rain felt like. What his mother's voice sounded like. His hands trembled. Eva reached out, touching his arm. Warm. Familiar. Real? "There's only one way out," she said. "You have to let go. Of everything. Even me." Jonah looked into her eyes. He remembered something. The scar. The warning, only trust the scars. He pulled up his sleeve. Nothing. No scar. Not anymore. He stepped back toward the mirror. It had rebooted. New message. Override pending. Upload complete. Choose which subject to preserve. A subject 001A, Jonah Harper. A subject 001B, Eva Raines. Jonah stared at the screen. "If I choose you," he whispered to Eva, "I disappear, don't I?" She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. "But the truth lives. And if I choose myself, then you'll forget me. Again. And they'll keep using you. Again." Jonah breathed in. His hand hovered over the names. 2 lives. 1 choice. He closed his eyes and clicked. There was no explosion, No blinding light, no dramatic collapse of reality, just quiet. Then a whispering hum. Like wind through wires. Jonah opened his eyes. The screen had gone black. No names. No choices. Just a single line in the center. Upload complete. Subject, Eva Raines restored. His breath caught. The walls were still shifting like heat haze. The mirror's frame glowed faintly. In its surface, his reflection had vanished, completely. Eva stood before him, blinking, as if waking from a dream within a dream. "Jonah?" she said, her voice thin, unsure. He nodded slowly. "I think. I gave you the key." She looked around the apartment, eyes darting across every object like it had been rearranged without her permission. The air was heavier now, realer somehow. A presence filled the silence that hadn't been there before. A weight of memory returning. "I remember it all," Eva whispered. "The cabin. The resets. The control logs, even my last diary entry." She turned to him, eyes wide. "It wasn't mine." Jonah furrowed his brow. "What do you mean?" Eva walked over to her bookshelf and pulled a weathered leather-bound journal from a hidden compartment behind the books. "This," she said, "was written by someone else. Someone using my voice. It ends one day after I was declared dead." Jonah stared at the cover. Her initials. Her handwriting. But the signature on the last page was wrong. Slightly off. Not just forged, imitated. Eva flipped to the final entry and read aloud. "I've seen the other side now. And I understand why they're afraid of it. We aren't meant to remember who we were. Because if we do, we might finally wake up." She looked up. "This isn't a diary. It's a warning." The lights in the apartment flickered. A low rumble trembled through the floor. The mirror reactivated, on its own. But now, the interface had changed. No code. No blue screens. Just a live feed of a control room. Monitors. Scientists in white coats. Hushed voices. Surveillance footage of Eva in the apartment right now. Eva took a step back, horrified. "They're still watching." Jonah turned to her, suddenly calm. "They always were." The mirror displayed another message. "Remote override detected. Purge sequence initiated. Countdown, 60 seconds." The walls began to pulse. Electric static cracked across the ceiling. The building groaned, like its foundation was being pulled apart pixel by pixel. Eva grabbed Jonah's arm. "We have to leave, now." "There's no door," he said. And he was right. The front door was gone. So were the windows. Even the floor seemed to blur at the edges. Eva turned to the mirror. "There's one way out." Jonah looked at the live feed. One monitor showed a glowing terminal gate, labeled, "Access Point, Subject 001B." He understood. "It's in the editor. We have to walk through the program to get out of it." "How?" "By finishing the story." Eva hesitated, then nodded. Jonah pressed his palm to the mirror's surface, and the glass rippled like water. It pulled at him, drawing his body through like smoke. Eva followed. They emerged into the editor core. A vast white space, no sky, no ground. Just endless data hovering in air like constellations. In the center, a platform. On it stood a woman in a black dress, hair tied back, fingers steepled under her chin. "You made it further than expected," she said coolly. Jonah blinked. "Dr. Hensley?" She smiled. "That's the name I was given for your session. But I've gone by many." Eva stepped forward, furious. "You stole my memories. My identity. You were borrowed. Not stolen. And the Jonah you knew? He was never a person. He was a bridge, a key." Jonah's voice trembled. "A key to what?" "The truth. The part of you that wanted to wake up. But you had to let go of yourself to find her." She pointed to Eva. She's the original. You're the echo. The remnant. Jonah's knees buckled slightly. So I was never real. Eva grabbed his hand. You were the part of me that refused to forget. That's real enough. The editor core began to collapse. Data fragments rained like fireflies. The woman in black stepped aside. Go, she said softly. Before the reset. Jonah looked at Eva. Are we waking up? She nodded, eyes shining. Let's find out. They stepped through the final gate, together. The world reassembled like a puzzle underwater. Colors bled back into form. Gravity returned. Jonah and Eva blinked against the pale morning light as they stood in an unfamiliar place. Not the apartment. Not the editor. Not even a simulation. This was real. They were in a modest sunlit room. Bookshelves lined the walls. A steaming mug of tea rested on a small oak table. Birds chirped outside. The faint scent of jasmine floated in the air. And in front of them, sitting quietly in an armchair, was Eva. But an older Eva. Maybe late 30s. A streak of silver at her temple. Eyes that had seen far more than anyone ever should. Took you long enough, she said gently. Jonah felt the ground sway under him. What? The older Eva set down her book, the diary, on the armrest. This isn't the afterlife. This isn't a trick. You're in what we call a buffer state. A safe zone between sessions. Eva, the younger, stepped forward. How am I here and there? The older Eva smiled. Because you broke the loop. That allowed you, the piece of me that kept screaming to remember, to come back. She looked at Jonah. And he was the echo that carried your voice when you couldn't. Tears welled in Jonah's eyes. So I was just a fragment. The older Eva shook her head. You were my conscience. My tether. You are real, Jonah. You're the part of me that wouldn't accept the lies. Eva looked at her older self. What now? She reached for the diary. This diary, it's not just a book. It's a backup. A memory vault. Every time they tried to wipe me clean, something wrote entries in here. Clues. Messages. From me. From him. From others like us. She opened it to the last page. The final entry dated one day after her official death. Eva read it aloud. If you're reading this, it means you made it through. They'll call you crazy. They'll say none of this is real. But remember, the mind forgets what the soul refuses to. You are not broken. You are awake. And the world fears people who truly wake up. A deep silence settled in the room. Eva whispered, then this was never about death. It was about rebirth. Jonah walked to the window. Outside, the world stretched wide, mountains in the distance, trees swaying in slow-motion peace. It didn't feel like Earth. But it didn't feel like fiction either. So what now? He asked. Older Eva stood and walked toward a vault in the wall. She placed the diary inside it, locking it with a small metallic key. Now, she said, we write new entries. Not ones they programmed, but ones we choose. Eva reached for Jonah's hand. He took it. And for the first time, there was no static. No error message. No ripple in the code. Just warmth. Human. Real. Free. As they turned toward the door, yes, a real door, no illusions now, the older Eva called after them. One last thing. They stopped. She held up a small black mirror, the same kind they had escaped from. There are others trapped in loops like ours. If you're strong enough, you can go back and help them. Eva nodded. Jonah gave a small smile. Let's write a new ending for them, too. They opened the door and stepped into the light. If you enjoyed this episode of Chase Studio Stories, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us continue to share impactful and meaningful content.